In conjunction with the 50th year anniversary of the Title IX legislation, welcome to North Florida Athletics' Talking Title IX series, where we interview current and former UNF student athletes and staff on the influence of college athletics in their lives and the ongoing impact made by Title IX. Enjoy. Welcome back to another edition of Talking Title IX. We got a special guest I've had a pleasure working a lot with the past couple years. Sabrina Ceniza, they've helped out with our ESPN Plus broadcasts, special events, Swoop Life Live as well. Thanks for joining.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So we'll get into what you've done here, but just give a quick introduction of who you are, hometown, when you went to UNF, and what you studied at UNF, because you did go here.
Yes. So I'm from Lakeland, Florida, Central Florida, right between Tampa and Orlando on I-4. Very specific. And then I went to UNF during 2014 to 2018. So I graduated 2018. And I studied communications.
So obviously this is a pretty niche field that we'll talk about. What was your kind of goal when you embarked on studying this?
Yes. So I was a junior and I didn't really like my major anymore, wasn't feeling it, and I was kind of shopping for a new major, and I found that communications would let me graduate semi on time, even though I was switching so late. So I kind of stumbled into production in a way because I wanted to be more on the TV behind the scenes side, and that's what the major was giving us. So that's how I kind of stumbled into it. Then I took a class that was really about sports and production, and then that's how I got started into doing ESPN here at UNF.
What was that first experience working with production? Because it's not like, you can do your class projects where you're using a camera like we're using right now, or you can do something pretty low end that's just one camera. But now there's like a system and there's lines and cables. What was that kind of intro like?
It was very overwhelming at first because you don't really know what the teacher's talking about until you're submerged into it. I remember my first time out, my hands were really, really sweaty. And I was just nervous the entire time. I feel like I was shaking the camera or trying not to shake the camera, but I was shaking for sure. And it was really taxing on my back because I'm just not used to looking up at this camera and I'm on the short side. So I'm looking up at the monitor and just trying not to get yelled at basically on the intercom in my ear.
So probably I'm guessing what things you were doing. Were you doing either game camera or hero camera, or were you doing shoulder camera for basketball?
I was doing a volleyball game, and it was the game camera. So the game camera is the camera that is on the most. So it's kind of high pressure and low pressure at the same time because they depend on you, but your shots are easy. But it's just if they catch you not prepared, you really get yelled at sometimes.
What's just for the viewer, obviously they don't know those things. What are those camera positions?
So the game camera is usually up pretty high. We call it the crow's nest. So that's where you get the visual of the entire game, like any pass that's being made for basketball or volleyball. And then there's a hero camera that is basically just right next to that game camera, which does close-up shots, maybe someone who did a notable action, we would go get them, or if the announcers happen to be talking about her or him, we would go focus on that player getting their emotions throughout the game as well.
Do you remember at the time doing it, did you really like it? Did you enjoy it up front, or was it like, this is stressful, I don't think I want to do this?
It was stressful, but I didn't really feel super stressed. It was kind of like a thrill in a way. I remember one of my coworkers or fellow students at the time was telling me for my first game, because he'd already done a couple, I came in kind of late, and he was like, you're doing good for your first game because they haven't really scolded you as much as they've been scolding everyone else. So that's how I kind of knew. I'm like, oh, maybe I could be good at this. I'll keep trying.
How did it progress from there? How did you stick with it? And obviously right now, these past couple of years, you played a massive part in the broadcast. What were those steps like to continue on as a student?
Right. So I graduated, and then I kind of took a break. I was just working a retail job, basically. And I and then all of a sudden I got a call from you one day saying that there was a position open and asked me to think about it. So thought about it. Then we reconvened, and then I accepted it, and that was quite a year for us, just kind of trying to figure out our relationship working wise, and trying to figure out each other's strengths, weaknesses, and best way to work it out between the both of us.
So going into that position, what did you feel like your strengths were as somebody in production? Because obviously you've been thrown around to different positions as a student, but going into it was like, okay, this is what I feel most comfortable with. You had to direct, which is like the upper echelon, but for you, what were your like strengths that you felt like?
I think my strengths were definitely teaching cameras what to get and how to just automatically kind of look for these things instead of the director having to tell them over and over again like what they need. And I really felt comfortable at replay. I had done that like probably the most out of all of the control room positions, and so I was good at teaching that. And I also thought I was teaching pretty well too, just in general, like how to set up a camera, maybe how to do audio, and just get things done. And I was learning on the fly as well. Like as you said, I was directing and I hadn't directed as much, so kind of teaching others while I'm learning as well was kind of a challenge.
I think one of the strengths that you had was obviously, it was for a lot of people that watch our broadcasts, they probably don't realize just how student laden it is. And for the non-students, often we're very recently were students. I think, your strength is you made them feel comfortable there as students. What is that key to, helping students come along in this field?
Right. So first thing I would say is make them feel prepared so that they kind of know what's coming, so they don't just get thrown off by something that they had no clue could have been a possibility. And then making them feel like if they do mess up, it's okay, and maybe not get scolded as often as like maybe I was scared to at first, which was uncomfortable, but it's a thing I got over. But I know not every student really works well like that. So I try to kind of like guide them a little bit more in the beginning, but then once I know they should know what they're doing, then I might be a little tougher on them. It's like kind of having them level up throughout their internship with us.
So obviously that year was really busy, a lot of challenges. We had the tennis broadcast as well that year. There's technical things that go into it too. Just explain for the viewer some of those, like, you're not just worrying about the storyline or the points. Like at some degree, that's kind of something you're not thinking about really, because it's not a concern. Those things will happen. You have to worry about technical things, production things. Go into some of those potential pitfalls that might happen for a broadcast that you have to worry about.
So especially like you mentioned with tennis and even any of our outdoor sports, basically. So our control room is inside the arena. So it's quite a bit of a distance from tennis, even softball and baseball. It's not just right there. And everything basically gets wired back to the arena where we're able to send it to the network. What can happen is that the inside the wires can get kind of dirty, and like even one speck of dirt could do this, but we could lose the picture of an entire camera. So we wouldn't have that angle. Let's say we needed, for example, we just finished, baseball and softball. So if we were to lose the camera high home right above the plate, that would lose a lot of action. That's the camera that follows the game the most. That can get the pitch, that can get base runners, it can get if someone hits a home run. If that camera is off during a home run, we're likely to miss that home run, unfortunately.
Yeah, you gotta go back and watch it. Why didn't I have this?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and the same can go for viewers that watch our games pretty frequently, maybe for baseball,
Yes.
softball, might have noticed maybe sometimes you will choose not to do the center field camera. Right. Sometimes that's just the artistic choice. Yes. Once or twice a game, you might not do it. Mm-hmm. But typically it's going to be there for the pitch. Right. Some of the times when it's not there for the pitch, true, it might be because that camera's out. We've had instances like that. What's really important to make sure those technical things are taken care of and in place for a broadcast?
Well, it's a lot of prep. It's mostly prep. So we get here quite a bit earlier before everyone else just trying to set it up, and we do a lot of testing. And we like to get here with an ample amount of time before obviously the game starts, just in case something is going wrong or something goes wrong, we have time to kind of troubleshoot it and fix it hopefully before that first pitch or tip off.
What's probably one of the points that you felt I'm taking the next step, I'm good at this, because you've gotten other big freelance opportunities, Gemstone in town, other places as well. When did you kind of realize like, oh, I'm like good at this?
It was kind of one of the first times I was on replay for a little bit. Tristan was the one who taught me how to basically operate the machine. Something just kind of clicked for me, and I felt like I was having fun versus just kind of stressed and working like when I first started out. And I think that's when the transition kind of goes like, oh, I'm good at this and I can have fun while doing something pretty niche and complicated at the same time.
So yeah, you mentioned Tristan. There's a lot of people in the Jacksonville area that all work together because production requires that. It's a niche talent, it's a niche skill, whether it is graphics, replay, or production. But would you feel that in Jacksonville and overall most of the community is men?
Yes, I would say mostly are men. I've only really worked with women like directly next to me, maybe like once or twice. It's not, or maybe like over comms, so that'd be like probably marketing, not even really production. Yeah. But production-wise, I think only about once I've really worked next to another girl.
Have you ever been to an event that was directed by a female other than yourself?
Other than myself?
Yeah.
Honestly, no. It's been guys through and through. It feels kind of weird at first, but they're really nice and welcoming. They don't really treat you any different. Right. I don't feel that I don't ruin the vibe or whatever's going on. Yeah. I think that it's still a good time, like even though I feel a little weird, I'm the only girl sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of people, when they do those broadcast booth shots, occasionally you watch the World Series and they'll cut to the broadcast booth, but you get that like once every 4 games, and like you'll see it, in there it's predominantly men. Right. It looks like the time that you'll see more women, you might, yeah, like you said, maybe audio on the field, parab mics, or talent though, for sure. You'll see a lot of talent. Did it feel intimidating, or did you feel like it was harder to break into the field maybe as a female at all, or did it really even cross your mind?
It honestly didn't really cross my mind just because I was just working and trying to get better at what I was doing. And I'm a big believer in just working, and then you'll get noticed as long as you're doing your job, working really well, and you have a good attitude. Good attitude is really important. You want to be someone who's good to work with, someone you enjoy working with, and so they'll keep calling you back for more and more opportunities that way.
Yeah, what's that like working in this field, getting those freelance gigs? Like, how do you even get the gigs? Like, what's the key to making sure you get some consistent gigs? Like, obviously it ebbs and flows.
Right, it does ebb and flow depending on basically when the regular guys would like to take their vacations. That's kind of when I fill in when someone wants to go out of town, and then they'll be like, hey, are you available a certain weekend or a certain day? And I'll let them know if I am or not. Consistently, you just want to be someone good to work with, someone they're not constantly having to correct. Like, it's all right to have a couple mess ups, like everyone has a couple mess ups. Once you get into this field, you'll watch like a pro game like NFL, NBA, you'll see the mess ups that they do. In a way, it's kind of ruined some sports TV for me, but I like seeing them also kind of have those mistakes just to make me feel like everyone has mistakes, so it doesn't make me feel as bad when I don't have a perfect game.
Yeah, I think it goes both ways. Obviously, I have not worked on the production side during the game very much, but as a consumer, some people I remember being in high school doing some internship at a local TV station, and we did, and they said, yeah, it'll change watching sports forever, more so for a negative reason. And I would say that kind of exists now, but it also gives you another reason to watch it in a way, because you're kind of watching how good of a production they're putting on. Like, if you realize the director didn't cut in time to something, or somebody was panning really hard, they needed to cut away. I mean, those are the types of things you're talking about that you see, right?
We see that, and then also we see sometimes mistakes on graphics. And I mean, graphics is a lot, because sometimes it's like those little typos, and you don't always have time to, sometimes you don't have a second pair of eyes, or you just don't have time to double check, and the graphics up, and that's it. It's
Yeah.
live though, so once it's done, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, those lower thirds, especially baseball, softball. I guess sometimes the basketball free throws and score bugs. That's a whole other kind of realm as well. Did you ever have any female mentors or kind of friends in the field? Maybe the ones that you've worked other freelance gigs with that you've come across, or can you think of?
Unfortunately, no. It's all been guys, like heavily guys. They've all been really great. As a girl, I don't think it's really affected my career in production, just because everyone's been so welcoming. A lot of the guys are older, so they might be looking to maybe leave or move or something, and so they always want those new skilled workers to come in and take their spots or cover for them when they're unable to do it. A lot of the companies here are getting more and more opportunities, so there's more and more need for more staff. So that's another thing that we've been able to do here, is kind of train students in this field and then let them make some money, good money off of it. And it's for a day, it's decent money, and they have fun. They basically get to watch sports while they work, and a lot of them do like that.
Yeah, I mean, there are quite a few that we can think of now just in a short time that kind of have gotten those gigs that you've trained. Zach being one, he's worked a little bit in the area. Simile helping at SMT, Celia was going to do that as well. Brian Ross, so it's cool. It's cool to see that, and that web grows for sure. Have you had any, stick with George or Tristan or Kyle, any kind of mentors in the field then overall, male mentors?
Yes, so I would say Tristan's a pretty good mentor for me. Whenever I have questions about just even invoice stuff, I ask him. Just little things that I might not have gotten any taste of in school or just working here, because it's kind of a different world out there. And Kyle has been a nice buddy, I guess, to have. We both are kind of in a similar stage in life and in our career, so I think it's kind of nice to have him there to just have company, basically. It's not just me that's kind of floating out here. And I will say George has been really great, good connection, and he has helped me, and he's letting me know when I've done really good or done okay, not as good.
Yeah, we'll be honest.
Honesty is a huge thing.
Yeah, so Kyle has been a huge help as well here, and kind of allows you to be freed up a little bit to to build a rapport with students and then train those students as well, because you need to know that you're going to have future skill ahead for future broadcasts. What advice would you give those students that are looking to get into this field coming up in college?
I guess be annoying to a certain point, not obviously spamming these guys, but if there's someone you've done freelance work for and you want to do more for them, definitely let them know. Be very open and try to, obviously you have your boundaries. Sometimes you're not going to be able to pick up every single opportunity thrown at you just because you have life too. But just try being open. And then if you have a discouraging day, don't let it hit you too hard. And things that may have been said to you during a broadcast when you're still trying to find your feet, don't take it too personally, because it's just in the moment that we get frustrated. There's a lot of moving parts. Just don't take it too personally. If you have a bad day, basically move on. This would work with any job or field out there. I think if you have one bad game, it's not going to ruin the rest of your career.
Any favorite events or stories that you look back fondly on or kind of just laugh at that are in the industry that kind of paint a picture of what it's like?
Yes, there are a couple. So there were, unfortunately, the way our power was set up at the time, when the fire alarm goes off or gets pulled, we lose power in the control room. Thankfully, we have these batteries to set up to kind of give us some time to get power back while things are happening in the building with facilities, and I'm sure they're doing their best to sort it out. But we only have a certain amount of time on these batteries, and we completely lost power inside the control room, and it was stressful because we have people to call, and there's a lot of things we have to do for a backup stream. So it was really stressful at the time, but in retrospect, it's funny just because we had absolutely no control over it. There's nothing we could have done to prepare for that, and that's just how things roll. We just roll with the punches. It's really important in this field.
Yeah, that brings in Ron and Kevin, of course. Those are other two important contacts in Jacksonville. Ron knows a lot of people with Jags and Gemstone, and that just, further perpetuates, for people watching this, just the connections that are built in the industry. Once you get in it and you build them, they stay really strong. Like we talked about,
Everyone kind of works with each other.
Like, Brand at the Jags as well, and Tristan's obviously helped with the Jags, and then
Gemstone, pretty much.
The Iceman, the Sharks, the Shrimp. A lot of those same people are working with SMT as well now, which is also part of it's based in Jacksonville. So, what would you, give advice for students that are, trying to get to the next level? They're trying to get those full-time jobs, they're trying to freelance, they're trying to do indirectly what you do.
So full-time jobs are unfortunately hard to come by in this field, so a lot heavily rely on freelancing, and that also can sometimes mean you need your own equipment, so it can get expensive to start up. But once you kind of have your niche, like for example those Steadicam operators, like out in California, they make decent money because it's their own equipment and they're a very niche like skill, so it's hard for them to kind of be outmoded in their camera ways, because now we have robotic cameras and we might not need as many camera operators in the future. But these Steadicam guys, a lot of those long continuous shots you see on the movie screen are made by these guys. And so if you find your niche and you like it and you get really good at it, you can make a good living out of that.
Because obviously creative video and podcasting and vlogging is super popular, but like kind of explain quickly like the delineation, the difference between broadcast and working in that area, because they're so different.
They are. So vlogging and like podcasting, those are kind of more chill setups, I would say. Like one, they're not live, so if you miss something you can kind of go back and like fake it again, I would say. But with live production, like what we've been talking about, is once it happens, it's gone. So let's say there was a huge game-changing foul that happened, and all our cameras none of them happen to get it. Now we can't really see what has happened, and we can't show the viewers at home like this game-altering event that's happened, and they could really affect our broadcast. I think it hurts the show when that happens.
Yeah, it's a lot more pressure, and it's also it's a different dynamic too. I mean, you're going to get more, you're going to get involved in a more technical heavy sense than you are maybe on the vlogging side, which obviously can vary depending on what type of stuff you're doing. But, on production too, like you're going to know the networks, you're going to know some IT stuff, soft IT things, you're going to know soft engineering things, you're going to know production things as well. Any advice that you would, anything in particular that you would want to share as advice for women coming up in this field?
Don't feel too weird if you notice that you're the only girl there. That's going to happen a lot. It's really not a huge deal. Like, I know that on the inside it feels like a big deal just because you don't know who to sit with when you go eat for lunch, or just little things like that. And obviously, like, guys are going to have like a different rapport with each other, especially if you're walking into their circle like that. Just you haven't known them, but they've known each other for years. It's going to feel weird, but just push through that feeling. And I think that a lot of y'all will be successful.
What, in terms of the work side of it, what advice would you give in general, in terms of like building that rapport, or what you do before games or before events?
Just do your best. Your best might be different days, but just do your best. And knowing that you've done your best is all you can really do. like I said before, you can have a bad day, and that might have been your best that day, but on another day you're going to have a totally different best.
Thanks, for coming in today, talk about it a little bit. It'd be good to even have to share to future students too that are coming up and considering the field. Worked over a couple hundred events for us, so we appreciate all your efforts and networking that it's helped us have as well. So thanks.
No problem. Glad to be here.